Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Write or Die Show. I'm your host, Randi-lee. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking to Simone de Muñoz. Welcome, Simone. So excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So because I probably screwed up saying your name correctly, can you say it for everybody?
Yes, it's Simone de Muñoz, and that's my pen name.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And again, I apologize that I probably screwed it up. Anyways, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so I live in the Bay Area of California. I work in nonprofit management at a small local safety net organization, which has been very busy during the pandemic, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm married. I've been married for 15 years now. Our anniversary is this month.
Wow, you don't look old enough to have been married for 15 years.
Oh, thank you. And I have two boys. They're 10 and 7. And when I'm not doing my nonprofit day job, I write. I have a book that came out this year, and I write essays on a variety of topics, including mental health.
That is amazing. So with that being said, let's talk mental health.
Yeah.
You start your story where you feel that is the best place to start it.
Yeah. So I guess my first run-in with any kind of mental health issue was postpartum anxiety after the birth of my older son, who's 10. So the way that showed up was an inability to sleep. As you can imagine, I don't know if you're a parent, but having a child completely disrupts your sleep. Yes.
And it never ends. People are always like, oh, it gets easier as they get older. Mine still doesn't sleep, and it's 15.
Oh no, that's bad.
Although now, I mean, he's old enough really to stay up by himself because he's 15, but like as a parent, you still sleep really lightly because they're awake. So your brain is still kind of awake.
Yes. So it's always changing from when they're infants waking up all night to when they're toddlers waking you up at the crack of dawn. And, as they get older and maybe still have trouble falling asleep, need you to lie down with it. There's always something with kids and sleep for sure. Yeah. So I was, so of course the baby would wake me up in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
But then I would not be able to go back to sleep. And so this could be like 3 a.m, and I would just be awake, throughout the night. And I spoke to my doctor about it, but I felt like she completely blew me off. And she was just like, yeah, you're tired. You're a new parent. And I'm like, no, this is not normal. Yeah. It's not normal to be able to go back to sleep when you're so tired and your baby wakes you up. Like,
yeah. Most parents, we pass right back out, right? Like you get up here, like feed you, change you, and pass back out.
Right. Because you're so tired. You should be able to sleep. So I really felt like she blew me off. I went to another doctor and I was like, is this hormonal? What's going on? And so they ran some blood tests and they said, your blood tests are normal. There's nothing wrong with you. And I said, well, I'm tired. It's not, I can't function. And the doctor, they said to me, nobody dies from being tired. I thought, well, I could pass out driving and crash into a tree. I mean, I live in California. I drive a lot.
Yeah.
And, being tired while you're driving is not very safe.
No, exactly.
So that was just flat out wrong and very dismissive. And I felt like at that time, over 10 years ago, there was more awareness about postpartum depression, but not really postpartum anxiety.
Okay. So what's the difference? Because that's actually new for me to hear.
Yeah. So I'm not a mental health expert. This is just from what I've seen with friends and read about. But postpartum depression, they kind of check in with you when you have a baby on, are you crying a lot? And then they kind of try to differentiate, is it the baby blues or is it actually something that needs to be treated? Is it something more serious? Maybe you need medication or something else. So there is that, there's kind of like a normal level as your hormones adjust to being a new mom. There's maybe something more serious. So I feel like there's a lot of awareness about that. When I went to my 6-week postpartum checkup, they had me do a questionnaire that was focused on postpartum depression. Are you crying? Are you feeling sad? I don't remember what the questions were, but kind of towards that, and I didn't have postpartum depression. I wasn't sad. I didn't have baby blues. I didn't have those emotions. That wasn't my issue. so I felt like nobody was really checking in on the postpartum anxiety. Do you have maybe intrusive thoughts? Are you unable to sleep? Like those kinds of indicators of anxiety. I
Yeah,
felt like that flew under the radar. Maybe it's different now. I think it is different now. I think there's more awareness about it now.
probably. Yeah. Yeah. Although, I mean, like we were talking about before, I'm almost up to 80 episodes, and I even have like I've got probably about another 20 guests lined up to interview. And you are only, I think, the second person to mention postpartum depression. So
That's because I think it's really common.
I think it's a lot more common than we know about, and people need to start talking about it more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So eventually, I kept trying to figure out how I could get help. I talked to some people, and a friend of mine said, there's this sleep center at Stanford that has a really thorough approach, and they look at all the different types of possible issues, and they can probably help you. And I'm very lucky that I live in the Bay Area right near Stanford, and I was able to. Yeah, and they're really doing edge work with looking at, hormones. Is it your breathing issue? Is it anxiety? Like, what is it? There's all these different factors that can influence someone's sleep.
Yes.
So I had a sleep study done, and it wasn't anything really physical that was causing the issue. So I met with a therapist.
Okay.
And the therapist is trained in these issues, and so she was able to help me through some talk therapy, but mostly it was cognitive behavioral therapy, changing habits, doing some exercises, giving me exercises to help when I was up in the middle of the night, and it didn't even take that long. It was a few weeks of meeting with her, and the issue was just a million times better. And it was so frustrating that it taken that. Yeah, it was frustrating that it had taken that long to find that right person to help me.
Yeah. And that's just it. Like, it wasn't even, so in the last interview that I was talking to the person, we were talking about how sometimes we'll go to a therapist, you might not connect with that therapist, you can find another one. But in your case, I mean, you were going to people saying something is wrong. I know something is wrong, and just kind of being ignored for a bit there beforehand. So it wasn't even like you were connecting with the right people at the beginning. You were being pushed to the side, being like, oh, you have a new baby, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
of course you're tired, you have a new baby. Well, I'm telling you that I'm not fine, so you need to help me address this issue. You're a medical professional.
Exactly. So, I mean, we need to start bringing more awareness to the fact that just because you have a new baby, there are so many things. And you said it before, I think there's more awareness about it, but I think we still have a long way to go, especially in regards to just like being a mom. So I didn't have postpartum depression, but I have had depressive episodes where it makes me feel ashamed because now I'm not being a good mom. So, I mean, I couldn't fully wrap my head around having this infant and then having postpartum depression, and then you're feeling like a bad mom because all of this stuff is going on. So, I mean, we have to get over that stigma. You're not a bad mom because you're experiencing a medical issue.
Yes. And I still see that stigma. People who have had these types of issues, they don't want their employer to know, or they don't want friends to know. They're worried about how people are going to perceive them. And for me, the essays that I've written, and when I have conversations with people, I want mental health issues to be the same as physical health. If my leg was broken, I would go to the doctor and say, I'm not leaving here until you fix my leg.
Exactly. Put a cast on it, or I'm just hanging out here forever.
Right. And it's the same thing. It should be the same with mental health. And also, there's not a stigma. You break your leg, you're not embarrassed to tell your friend or your boss that you broke your leg.
Exactly. Unless you did something really dumb to break it. But yeah, normally it's like, okay, I broke it, so hey, look, and it's like, here, sign my cast. It's like,
okay, yeah. So I've been seeing that from friends and coworkers. Still, there's, even after there's been awareness of this issue for years, I'm still seeing people that don't want to bring it up and are worried about how people are going to treat them. So I'm hoping that, by talking about these issues on podcasts and writing essays, that every little bit chips away at that stigma.
Exactly. And that's my whole reason behind the show too, is that the more we talk about it, the more other people won't feel alone and maybe feel like they are able to talk about it too. And then on the flip side of that, it's also for those people who aren't sure how to even interact with somebody who's going through it. If you hear about how it's affecting people, maybe you'll have a better understanding so that you're not just saying, oh, you just had a baby, you're fine. Like maybe you have a better understanding of how to actually help this person.
Yeah. And, just basic empathy, especially from the medical professionals. It's just listen to what people are saying and without brushing off their concerns.
Yeah, that's a big one, is that the medical professionals should not be brushing things off. I've definitely had my old doctor, and I absolutely adored him. I'm so sad that he retired. But many years ago, when I was first trying to get help for my son, really wasn't interested in the fact that I was like, no, these behaviors are not normal. No, you can say that he's just a hyper kid, but no, these behaviors are not normal. Like this, there's something deeper going on. And that mental health piece wasn't part of what he really looked at or believed in or whatever it was. I don't know what he was thinking, but and it turns out, guess what? Yeah, my kid does have some issues, right? Like, so trust your instincts as a parent, trust your instincts for yourself. You know yourself best, and keep pushing until you get the help. So that's what you did, right? You kept pushing.
Yes. And luckily it didn't take that long. I've heard of people who are struggling with insomnia for a decade. And then the longer it goes on, also the harder it is to treat because your body really gets stuck in that pattern.
Yes. So how did they end up, like, what did they do?
Yeah, so they had me change my sleep schedule. This was a big part of it. So I had been trying to go to bed earlier to get more sleep, but that actually is counterproductive because then your body wakes up and feels kind of like it's had a full rest, even though now it's 3 a.m. and you're awake. Like if you go to bed at 9 p.m. because you want to a little early, then you're up at 3. Well, you've slept for 6 hours, so you're maybe not going to be able to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
So changing that sleep schedule where you're really restricting. So let's say you go to bed at 11, then maybe you're still up at 3, but then you're so tired the next day that you can go to bed a little earlier. So then you can, or actually, no, you keep going to bed at that later time and hope that you lengthen the time period that you're sleeping. So you are sleeping a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a doctor would have to tell you exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is your experience of it.
Yeah, in my experience, it's an example, but I think that's a big part of treating that type of insomnia where you wake up in the middle of the night. If you have insomnia where you can't go to sleep in the beginning of the night, that's treated differently.
Yeah.
So that was part of it. Just kind of bringing to light some underlying anxiety that wasn't related to the sleep schedule. Just talking through some issues. And I remember asking the therapist at one point, why does it help if I'm telling you this? How does this help? What does this do?
Yeah.
And she said, well, it's kind of like airing out a wound.
I like that analogy.
So bringing light to it so that it's not festering under the surface, even just talking about what that damaged place or that pain or whatever that is, that just having it out there somehow that helps.
It does. It really does. And in therapy too, they often will teach you various coping strategies or change your thought process, which is also very helpful. But if you can't afford therapy, because it can be quite expensive, and I'm in Canada, but it's still very expensive because, anyways, that's a long different story. Anyways, if you have a really super trusted friend who isn't going to give you advice, who is literally just going to listen, like you said, airing it out, just getting it all out is like taking the weight off your shoulders.
Yeah. And then the other part was exercises. So something I found really helpful is breathing exercises.
Oh,
She had
yeah.
a 4-7-8, where you breathe in for four counts, hold it for 7, and then breathe out for 8. And I think there's different versions of this type of breathing exercise. But then when you're trying to fall back asleep, if you do that, then your mind kind of shuts off because it's focused on the counting and the breathing.
Yeah.
And I still do that if I wake up.
Yeah, I've done not that particular breathing exercise, but when I've woken up in the middle of the night and have trouble falling, well, mine's not so much in the middle of the night. It's the beginning of the night that I usually have trouble falling asleep. I'll focus on my breathing and focus on just really big, long inhales and exhales, and having that focus on the breathing helps make me fall asleep. So it totally works.
And then another part of it that I thought was really helpful was kind of tracking and noticing. So that was keeping a journal of how much I slept and then how I felt the next day. And that helped me notice that, because I think people get like really caught up, I'm sure everyone has done this, where you have to wake up in the morning, you set the alarm, and then you're up you're not sleeping well because you're worried. Oh,
yes.
Am I going to sleep, or I'm going to be tired when I wake up, or, like you have, that's kind of like that anxiety happens and then you don't sleep well.
Yeah.
So keeping the journal of how many hours I slept and how I felt the next day made me realize that there's not actually as much of a relationship as you might think. So,
okay.
Yeah. So you might sleep, let's say you slept 6 hours. The next day you might feel totally fine. Like you might not feel tired the next day. Maybe you slept 8 hours and you feel exhausted for some reason. And, so kind of like decoupling that.
Yeah.
And so that you're not so fixated. And it's like, okay, yeah, I did have a bad night's sleep. I slept, broken sleep, this many hours, whatever.
Yeah.
But you know what? I was okay. I functioned fine that day. So kind of like decoupling that so that when you do have to wake up early, or when you're having trouble falling asleep or something, you're not so worried about what your next day is going to be like.
Yeah.
That was helpful to me also.
The other night I went to bed at midnight, had to get up at like 6 for a business meeting. And normally I would have been like so exhausted, not even functionable. But I did my business meeting and then I painted my entire living room and dining room. Then I took a nap. And once I woke up from my nap, again, I was super refreshed. And it wasn't like a crazy long nap, but I was super refreshed and was able to then do homework with my kid and cook dinner and finish doing some writing that needed to be done. And then I didn't go to bed till midnight again. So like, I think like sleep and mental health is super important. We have to get enough sleep. That is, I'm not debating that. But I think there might be different ways to go about getting it now that I'm working from home and able to kind of change the way that I used to do things. There's different ways.
I think that's why journaling can be helpful also, because everyone's different. So you can't just, like everyone needs to sleep from, 10 to 6 or whatever every day. And if I don't do that, it's wrong. Like, no, you have to find what works for you. So if you keep that sleep journal, then you can know, oh, hey, I felt great when I, took a nap and did this sleep at night. So I think that's helpful in general, like anytime you can kind of track things.
Yeah.
And pay attention. I think that mindfulness, that noticing how you're reacting is important.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So you're sleeping fairly well now then?
Yeah. And now, it's not that I sleep 8 hours through the night every single night, but if I wake up, I know I have to kind of keep myself in sleep mode, don't turn on lights, do my breathing. And if I really am struggling to go back to sleep, then I'll maybe read until I feel sleepy and then go back to sleep. Not try to force myself. If I'm not sleepy, then it's not recommended to kind of stay in bed forcing yourself to sleep. It's recommended to kind of do another calm activity.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how you mentioned staying in that sleep mode and not turning on lights and stuff. So my husband and my kid do not understand how if I wake up in the middle of the night, I can walk from one side of my house all the way to the other and go to the bathroom and not turn on a single light. I do not turn on a single light. I'll admit it. I do not flush the toilet in the middle of the night because I don't want the loud noise. Yes, I still wash my hands. I am still hygienic. But like I try to minimize as much as possible being awake,
Mhm.
right? So like the most awake thing I do is wash my hands.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get my brain thinking, oh, we're awake now. So because the lights are on and this noise and whatever. So I love how you mentioned that, because I totally do that.
Mhm. Yeah, I
And
think that's the fun.
if you know your house well enough, you won't trip on stuff, usually.
No, I don't turn on lights in the middle of the night if I go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
One time I did bonk my shin against a piece of furniture that was not where it was supposed to be.
See, and that's the problem if people move stuff when it's not supposed to be that. So, all right. And now that your sleep is under control, how has that helped you feel? And
it's just taken a weight off my mind because I'm not constantly thinking about it, not constantly thinking about how tired I am, not constantly thinking about when I can sleep or if I will be able to sleep. I mean, this was a long time ago that this happened, so it was 10 years ago, but it really allowed me to function just completely differently. And I think apart from helping with my sleep, helping me function, it also gave me so much compassion for anyone dealing with any kind of mental health issues. I just realized how much it dominates your life and disrupts everything, and made me really feel compassion for people going through hard things.
that is so important. I mean, we've already mentioned that empathy piece, that we have to have that. And it's a lot easier to have it when you've gone through it, but you don't always have to go through it in order to have it.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice if people people could just see that other people are struggling and feel that compassion and empathy for them and try to help.
Exactly. You don't have to fully understand what they're feeling to understand that they're feeling upset.
Mm-hmm.
So now that is kind of like a weight off your shoulders, how are you just doing now? Like, what's going on now?
Well, now I have the ability to juggle a whole bunch of things since I'm not dealing with that. I have a job in nonprofit management, which is pretty busy, and I write. So I don't know if you want to jump into the book. And then I have my kids that I take care of. So
Perfect.
I have all this going on because I'm not dealing with this lack of sleep anymore.
Perfect. And that it was my segue into your books. So tell us about it.
Yeah, I have it here. I can show you.
Man flu.
Yeah.
Okay.
So man flu is about a pandemic, but I started writing it before COVID.
Okay.
And it's a pandemic that affects men. It kills or weakens men, leaving women in charge. So I think a lot of us can get behind a woman running.
Yeah.
And I wrote it in reaction to the Me Too movement. I was really angry, and that's how I deal with my emotions, is writing. And I thought, these men are screwing things up. At that time in the news, every other day, a man in power was in trouble for some stupid thing.
Yes.
I thought,
keep it in your pants, boys. Keep it in your pants.
Let's give women a turn. Why don't we see what happens? And at that time, people were having these conversations like, why don't we run things? We would do a much better job.
Yeah.
So, I thought, well, let me write about that. Let's see what would happen if women were in charge. So that was the motivation for the book. And then COVID hit while I was writing it. And that was just crazy. I felt like I had predicted the pandemic because COVID, I don't know if you remember, but in the early days, they were saying that men were more affected by COVID than women.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
I think actually the death rates and things like that are slightly higher for COVID. For men from COVID. So I was really frightened that I had kind of created this monster, but I didn't create it, I swear.
That is hilarious, though, that it kind of the same wave.
Yeah. And the main character is a vaccine researcher who wants to save mankind. She doesn't want men to just die out. And she's married to a man who is bedbound. He has been affected by man flu and is very debilitated, and she has to take care of him. So that also parallels what we're dealing with now as women have become super caretakers. I mean, women have always
Oh
been
yeah.
taking care of people, but in these times, even more so,
Yes.
taking care of things at home, taking care of, remote schooling, all these things going on. So that reflects the experience of this character too. She's taking care of somebody at home. She still has to work. But then she meets a handsome neighbor who has never been infected with man flu.
Yes. Is he, it'll spoil it, but is he like the key to solving it since he didn't get it? Like he's immune to it?
No, but there's another sexy man who is a research subject in the lab where she works. So there's a couple of sexy men in the book.
I mean, if you're gonna write about men, you might as well make them sexy.
Exactly. The few remaining men, of course, are very sexy. So she's going about her business, trying to find this vaccine, and getting a little sidetracked by these sexy men that pop up. And I think, saying more would be a spoiler, but it's a thriller. So even though there's some steam, it's not a romance.
That is important to note. Yeah, I did see when you held up the cover. However, if you're listening on the podcast and you want to see the cover, but yeah, that actually made me really excited when I saw that it was a thriller because I love horror and thriller stuff. So yeah, that's my jam.
It's fun. It's a fun read. And it takes place 10 years after a pandemic. So it's not, I don't think it will kind of bring up that pandemic fatigue kind of that people are feeling later. It's after all that.
Yeah, because we're going to still be feeling the effects from this pandemic years later with just getting industry back to where it was before.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, tons of new and different jobs too that people have explored during this time to go very much online and stuff. So it's kind of interesting. Where do people pick up this book?
It is available on Amazon. You can get it as a paperback, hardback, ebook, audiobook. And
audiobook. Did you do it yourself or did somebody else narrate it?
No. I have a theater person. She's got those acting skills.
Yes. I did my first audiobook and I totally narrated it myself and it was fabulous. Except my audio quality, I got to work on that. But I mean, the actual narration part is good.
You have that dramatic flair that I do not have.
Yeah. Well, when I was little, I was going to be a famous actor. So, I mean, I never lost my flair.
Yes.
Perfect. And where do people follow you?
The best place to find me is at my Instagram at Simone de Muñoz. I have a website with the same handle as well. I'm on Facebook, but not quite as much.
Excellent. So we're going to have those links down in the description below so people can very easily get a hold of the book and get a hold of you because I'm sure you're going to have more coming out.
Well, I have a short story that I just came out with, and that is a romance. So for those people who like a lot of steam, it's very steamy. It's called The First Time in Forever. It just came out on Tuesday. And
wow.
Perfect timing to talk about it. And it features some of the characters from Man Flu.
Oh, that's kind of neat.
Yeah, so if you read Man Flu and you like it, you can kind of read some more about what happens to some of the people after. And or you can start with a short story. It doesn't spoil too much and then go back to the book. So depending if you're a short story person, a romance person, a thriller person, where you want to
go. You've got some choices there for your Christmas presents that you're going to buy and give out. I mean, for the stories you're going to read.
Yes. Well, the short story is holiday themed too.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, seriously, go and get this for Christmas. It's like it came out just in time for it and it's holiday themed. Like,
yes.
Perfect. So thank you so much for being on the show. Do you have any last words of wisdom to share?
No last words of wisdom. Just, take care of yourselves, get the help that you need, find that outlet, if that's writing, which it is for me, or whatever gets you kind of into that flow state where you can be happier. Just hoping everyone takes care of themselves.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was fun.
So again, pick up that Christmas gift with the links down below. But it is kind of funny that she just released it and it's a holiday themed story. So if you are interested, then of course, go and support. We got to support all of our awesome guests here on the show. Speaking of support the show by hitting that like and subscribe button and sharing these episodes out with all of your friends. If you want to support financially, we do have a merch store where you can pick up some awesome merchandise. I'm not wearing any today, but we have it. We always give 10% of the proceeds back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. And remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly. Bye.